So who can raise their hand? We're on our 6-4 notes. Who can raise their hand and tell me the first step? What was the first thing you did to convert this from slope-intercept form to standard form? Very good. So we're going to multiply by 4. Why did he choose to multiply by 4? Anybody? Because the denominator is 4. Good. And then I like that he mentioned you've got to distribute the 4 to all of the pieces. So 4 times y gives me 4y equals 4. And then I have to multiply that 4 by negative 3/4. If it's helpful for you, write this off to the side. My multiplying by 4 cancels with my dividing by 4. So I'm just left with negative 3x. And then what did you guys get for 4 times negative 4? Negative 16. Good. Who can raise their hand and give me the next step then? If I want to write this in standard form, what do I have to do? We've gotten rid of all the fractions. So now how do I get it to say ax plus by? Good. We're going to add 3x to both sides. So I'm going to write my 3x first because it's supposed to say ax plus by. So I'm going to write 3x plus 4y equals, so I've got 3x plus 4y equals, and then what's your value for c? Negative 16. Good. Questions on that one? Okay, do you guys feel okay converting standard form, or I'm sorry, slope-intercept to standard form? Yeah, all right, let's jump to our next page. And we're going to do a couple of word problems here. So example 5 tells us to write an equation in standard form to find the number of hours you would need to work at each job to make a total of $130. So what we've got here in our table is 2 different jobs. We can mow lawns, and if we mow lawns, we make $12 per hour. And we also have another job delivering newspapers, and when we deliver newspapers, we make $5 per hour. And we want to figure out what combination of hours would allow us to make a total of $130. Since we have 2 different jobs, mowing lawns and delivering newspapers, that give us 2 different amounts of money. So we make more money mowing lawns than we do delivering newspapers. Since we've got 2 different jobs with 2 different amounts of money, we have to use 2 different variables. I personally, guess what variables I like to use? X and Y. Very good. So I'm going to use X to represent mowing lawns and Y for delivering newspapers. And I just like to use X and Y because standard form has X and Y in it. So if I want to know how much money I make mowing lawns, I'm going to take my $12 per hour and I'm going to multiply that by X. So I'm going to take 12 and times by X. Because if I mow lawns for 2 hours, how much money do I make? 24. If I mow lawns for 3 hours, how much do I make? 36. So you're taking 12, multiplying by the number of hours, and that tells you how much money mowing lawns makes you. Plus, we're going to add to that my delivering newspapers. So $5 per hour. If you mow lawn, or I'm sorry, if you deliver newspapers for 3 hours, how much money do you make? 15. If you deliver newspapers for 4 hours, how much money? Make 20, right? So you're taking your 5, you're multiplying it by your hours, and that's telling you how much money you make delivering newspapers. So I'm going to add plus 5y. And all together, how much money do I want to make? 130. Yep. So we had to write an equation in standard form to find the number of hours you need to work at each job to make a total of $130. That's your equation. Now you don't have to solve it. The directions just say to write an equation. So we just want to make sure, does this say AX at the beginning? Does it say plus BY? Does it say equals C? Yep, so we're just writing an equation in standard form. All right, last example. I want to do letter A together, just so that way we use the same variables. So Larry runs at an average speed of 8 miles per hour. He walks at an average speed of 3 miles per hour. Letter A says to define a variable for time spent walking and define a variable for time spent running. So what variable do we want to use for walking? X, very good. So let's see, he runs at a speed of 8 miles per hour. He walks, so above the word walks, I'm going to write the variable X. Where it says to define a variable, that just means, hey, we got to say that X is walking. If I write X above walking, do people know that X means walking? And then we have to use a different variable for time spent running. What are we going to do for running? Y, good. So above the word run right here, I'm going to write a Y. And that tells my reader that Y stands for running. I want you guys to go ahead and write an equation for letter B. All right, who can raise their hand and help me out with this? You're writing an equation in standard form to show the combination of times he needs to spend running and walking to travel a distance of 15 miles. So who can raise their hand and help me out with your setup? Let's see. That would work. So you're giving me a possible answer. I just want the equation right now. Very good. That's perfect. So we have 3x, so 3 miles per hour for walking, plus 8y equals 15. We want to go 15 miles altogether. Now, what this equation means, I do want to spend a little bit of time explaining this, is let's say Larry decides he is only going to walk. That's all he's going to do. All he's going to do is walk. He's not going to run. So what I'm going to do, because he's not running, is I don't really need this 8y. So I have 3x is equal to 15. So what would x have to be equal to? It'd have to be 5, right? He would have to walk for 5 hours in order to go those 15 miles. Does that make sense? But if he decided that he was going to spend some time running, then that would mean that he would have to walk less. So you could have different combinations of walking and running and still get up to that 15 miles. Go ahead and flip to your worksheet, because I think that's the end of the notes, correct? So flip to your 6-4 worksheet. And for homework this evening, I'm going to have you guys continue practicing some graphing. So you are going to need some graph paper, because I want to make sure you guys do okay with that. So I'm going to, this time, instead of circling them, the ones that are circled in purple are the ones that you did last night or over the weekend. I'm going to go ahead and underline the following in blue, and this is your homework for tonight. I want you guys to do number 10. $11, 15, and 16. So 10, 11, 15, and 16, 4 from the top section. You do need to graph, so you're going to want to make sure you have some graph paper for that. It says write each equation in standard form using integers. This is our next section here. In this next section, are you graphing? No. All right. You are simply converting this slope-intercept form into standard form. And what does it mean when it says using integers? whole numbers, right? No fractions. You've got to get rid of those fractions. If there isn't a fraction, guess what? You don't have to do anything. All right. If there are no fractions, that eliminates that step. So I want you guys to do number 22, 25. Whoops, sorry, I'm supposed to be underlining this. 22, 25, 28, and 29. So 22, 25, 28, and 29. So 4 in that section. And 34 and 36. Now, before you grab graph paper, I'm going to give you a recommendation on the type of graph paper to grab. For your graph paper, here's how I would organize everything. You guys have to do 10, correct? So I would do number 10 right here. And then number 11. And then 15 and 16. So 15 and 16. And it might be helpful for you guys at the top of this paper to write 6-4 worksheet. That way you know what these graphs go to. And then you're also going to want that second sheet of graph paper that I mentioned that looks like this. So you're just going to want this grid paper because for this word problem down here for number 34, letter B says to graph your equation. I'm going to kind of start setting up the graph a little bit for you guys. If you have to graph this equation, you only need quadrant 1. And we talked about this a little bit in 6-2. So you only need quadrant 1 for your graph. So that's why I'm having you use this different graph paper right here. You're going to just draw quadrant 1. And then make sure you label your intervals and everything when you go to graph it. But you're going to write an equation in standard form, and then you're going to go about graphing it the exact same that you do that top portion. Any questions there? All right, that is your homework for tonight. You've got some time to get work in. Make sure when you upload to Google Classroom that your graphs are there. And for 22, 25, 28, and 29, you guys need to show some work for those ones. Where you have to convert the equations, you must show work.